Yo, what's up everybody? Evan here for Grips.com, continuing with Project Get Me Stackin. Today's question is all about going for it. Let's get into it. Hey Evan, my name is Zach and I'm from SoCal. I was raised to be competitive from a young age, competing in tournaments for tennis and basketball. 2 years ago, I went to college to study computer engineering at USC and lost my scholarship due to lack of interest in my studies. Up to this point, my dream career was a professional video game player. I had always been great at games and very competitive with them, but never put enough time into one specific game to reach the very top. You sound a lot like me. I've played poker since I was young, but now I want to give it a real shot. Since logging about 60 hours, I've identified some problems. A, I have bad bankroll management. I'm too results oriented if I lose and I want to make it back quick. B, if I get bored of playing the same game, for quite some time. In the world of video games, you can just select another character and it practically becomes a different game, even though it isn't. In poker, as you've said, and I've heard from others, it is bad to switch around from cash games to sit and goes to multi-table tournaments. C, I think I'm much better in live games, but I'm not 21 yet. And lastly, D, one of my problems playing online poker is I sometimes get distracted by the internet, try to watch videos or read things while I play, only looking at the tables to make moves. I like to make fancy plays, and this isn't profitable unless you really know the table you are playing. Does any of this sound like you? Here are my questions. Is it easier or harder today to make a living playing poker than 3 to 5 years ago? I have access to amazing resources, but then again, everyone else does too, and this scares me since I think about trying to be one of the absolute best. Are live games easier than online games for the most part? Finally, my parents are willing to pay for my college tuition, but I can't find a major that interests me the same way gaming does. Should I sift through the bullshit to grab a degree in something I don't care about just to have a backup in case I don't make it in the poker world? Thanks for this question, Zach. I think I'll be able to wrap them all up into a single presentation here, and since I can see your seriousness, I can sense your passion from your words for the game right now, I'm going to give you as passionate a response as I can. I think that the way the world is developing, with the exposure to video games at a young age and the competitive nature of e-gaming these days, it's no surprise that people want to turn their clicking skills, into money-making skills. Money rules the world, right? Poker is something that definitely affords that opportunity, especially because there are so many people playing it who, they're not making the effort to become better players. They're not making the effort to become winning poker players. They just want to click buttons and get their fix. So just before I get into the presentation though, because I don't know, it just bothers me a little bit. I want to tell you, ditch the fear, ditch the self-judgment. It is okay to not be number one. Okay? I said it. It's okay to not be number one. And unless you can accept that, then you're almost guaranteed to be too hard on yourself, burn yourself out, run yourself into the ground, potentially sabotage yourself. I mean, think about it. If you can become a winner and make money doing something you love, playing a game, what's the harm in being number 10, number 100, number 1,000? Fuck it. What's the big deal? Good old US of A. If you're not first, you're last, right? I love the effort, and I love the idea of shooting for being the best you can be. For the best you can be, not the fucking ultimate best. And just don't let that ideal paralyze you, because it's a great idea to have, but you don't need to necessarily live up to that extreme ideal that you have in your mind. Anyway, let's get into the presentation, shall we? First things first. If you want to be a professional poker player, you need to get a proper understanding of the game and build from there. Fortunately, Grips.com has you covered in those regards. Also, there is a huge wealth of resources out there in terms of poker books, poker video training sites, poker audio podcasts, poker forums, poker strategy articles. But as I said, build, and build at a manageable pace. Buying 10 poker books and trying to overload yourself with information is not going to make you a superstar, because you have to allow your brain time to absorb, interpret, and understand the information. Which brings me to point 2. You have to expose yourself to the game and get experience playing. Making bets, making calls, making bluffs, making everything for the concepts you've learned to really sink in and make sense. Because when you're reading a book, like, yeah, you're getting information, but it's still just words on a piece of paper. You need to actualize those concepts and see what they really mean in the real world. And there is no substitute for first-hand experience. I don't care what you're trying to learn. There's no substitute for it. So, once you have your guidebook, your map per se, you need to get in there and mix it up. Go get lost. Go have fun. See where you end up, so that you can develop a better understanding, a better feel, and start to figure out what is important and what isn't important at this moment in time in your development as a player. Because everyone's a little different and everyone needs a little bit of a different path to get to that end destination. Next up is all about putting in the repetitions. To bring in your first point, yes, poker is tougher now than it was 3 to 5 years ago. But it's also easier to get caught up. You have more sites to choose from, softwares make it easier to multi-table, and it's easier to get those reps in. Think about bodybuilding and fitness. No matter how many fitness books or you read or bodybuilding movies someone watches, they're still going to need to put in time to develop that physique. They can use supplements, which would be the poker equivalent of softwares, and they can get a personal trainer, which would be the equivalent of getting a coach or having a study buddy. But ultimately, they won't get anywhere until they put in that time in the gym, the same way you need to put in that time in the tables. So to get skilled in poker requires putting in a lot of hands and trying not to rush the process. Take it slow and enjoy every moment of it. In general, the more hands played, the better the player. But they should be quality hands. You know, your brain has to be active, engaged. So get in there, get stacking, and get caught up to the competition. This is how theories and techniques will become second nature and automatic, and you'll just know what to do in all these situations and you won't even be able to explain why. It's important to be constantly bettering your skills and improving your game. Again, looking at working out. You put the reps in the gym to trigger the response in your body, but the growth, the magic happens when you are resting and giving yourself proper fuel. You need to look at where you're struggling, where you're making mistakes, and figure out what you can do differently to plug those leaks. Every time you eliminate a leak from your game, you become a more dangerous player. Every time you play, you give yourself a chance to identify potential leaks. Do that enough times, and you'll end up as one badass mother shut your mouth. Don't underestimate the value of self-reflection. Speaking of choosing between live and online, yes, on average, live players will be weaker than online players, but that doesn't mean live is where you should be playing. Online and live poker are totally different beasts. There's no way of knowing where you will excel most until you try both out. In your case, you gotta wait. In general, I would expect gamers to do better online, and I would expect any sort of people persons to do better live. To maximize your earn, you probably want to do a mix of both, using online poker to fine-tune your game due to the ability to get in tons of reps, and using live to cash in on weaker players. Just remember, patience and some level of social skills are required to excel at live play. You can't just be a robot. You gotta be a human being. Once you know where your sweet spot is, go out there and get stacking. The money is on the table. It's waiting for a skilled player like you to come collect it. So identify where your edge is the strongest, the biggest, and then apply, apply, apply. The way real money is made in this game is by applying edges repeatedly. Not necessarily huge edges, they can be small edges. You just do it repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly. Look at Las Vegas. So find your sheep and shear, shear, shear. But do not, I repeat, do not skin your sheep. He will leave you. You want your sources of income to be renewable resources, and going for the kill can sometimes eliminate that source of income. Occasionally you do have to be careful. I want to close out this presentation by reminding you that it's always important to keep an open mind and be willing to try new things and opportunities. You never know what you might fall in love with if you aren't willing to expose yourself to it. Poker is a great way to make money, but money isn't everything. And being willing to give a go at school, a sport, a startup, or even some club will give you the chance to find that thing that provides you a level of happiness that money cannot. That being said, I'm not necessarily sold on the university and college system, but I do acknowledge and embrace the importance of education. So, yeah. Make sure you keep yourself educated and smart by whatever path works for you. For me, it's reading articles on the internet, getting books from Amazon.com, and watching videos on YouTube. That's what works for me. I tried school. Wasn't my ideal learning environment, but you don't know until you try them all out. So recognize there's a lot of knowledge out there and worth getting. We live in a beautiful age where we are so connected. We have access to anything we want. All you gotta do is type it in, click it in, boom, connected. And if you are so blessed as to be able to get a quality education for free, I mean, at least try it out and see if you can find something that you fancy. There's no need to commit to a degree and think that, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, this is me, this is what I am for the next 40 years. No, do an undergrad, try something. Take a bunch of electives, diversify, expose yourself, and see what's really good. And, you know, don't feel like you're gonna be trapped with any of that either. There's no reason that you can't play and study at the same time. That's what I did. I developed my game while at the same time doing a little bit at school so I could get my degree and get by. You know, whatever it takes. So, that wraps up my presentation on that. Zach, I hope that this information is helpful for you and helps you choose your path and your direction. It's okay to walk a couple at the same time. I mean, you're super young, dude. Plenty of time to figure it out. No need to commit to anything like super serious right now. Anyway, if you have questions for Project Get Me Stackin', please send them on over to evan@grips.com with the subject line, Get Me Stackin'. I hope you found the video insightful and informative. Till next time, this has been Evan for grips.com saying peace, patience, and progress.